Welcome to Time for Anything. Today I'm here, Phil and I are here with our friend Nate.
What's up, guys?
Nate is going to be a father soon. It's pretty exciting.
That is correct.
That is just pretty crazy to me. I mean, I've known you literally my entire life. Our parents were friends before we were born.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of you now having... Maggie's due in February?
Yes.
That's
Early
insane.
February.
That's crazy. Like, that's just nuts.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Well, I guess Albion's the only other person in my friend group who's pregnant, but he's not pregnant, obviously. But it's pretty crazy to just think about that your whole life is about to change and totally shift because, like, you're creating a life. You know what I mean? What kind of weight has that made you nervous or scared or?
Absolutely. So yeah, it's I'm not quite sure exactly where to get into it. So I'll start with a little bit of background. So Maggie and I met. Maggie's my now wife. Met back in 2016. We started dating October 2016, and we spent a few years dating. Got married last June. So June 15th was actually our anniversary. So we've been married a little bit over a year, and
Nice.
now we're expecting a kid. So yeah,
That didn't take long.
No. Well, COVID shutdowns and everything. That's the joke that's going. That's the joke that's going
when
around.
you're indoors all day, except yeah.
Hey,
so.
hey. All right. So yeah, this is definitely a really crazy thing, and people say like, oh, like were you trying for a kid? Were you not trying? And
Somewhere in the middle.
it's a little yeah. So somewhere in the middle. Like we were just like we were okay with the possibility of it. We weren't really expecting it, but this is what happened. This is what God brought into our lives, and so
Yeah, I guess I was just about to say that. Like, thinking about the way that you view the world and your beliefs, you kind of have this idea that you're like, well, it happened for a reason, so it's okay. Everything's going to be fine. A lot of other people who maybe don't have a religious belief in their life are like, oh, what am I going to do? Everything's in disarray. This is crazy. But you kind of have this mellow outlook on it, thinking this is a blessing, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, like it's definitely a mindset shift, and it's a very quick, it's a sudden transition from your life being all about you and what you want to do, and suddenly having to be very okay with the prospect of, wow, like I'm now responsible for the life, like the well-being, the raising, the education of like a new life in this world. There's a lot of gravity there. It suddenly, I think, matures you very quickly, even just from a mental aspect.
Yeah.
It forces you to think about all of the implications there.
Yeah, because you don't just go from, oh, I'm living alone and I'm doing my own thing with my wife. Like that's one thing, but then you have to refocus your mindset and your energy onto, oh, well, now my time is going to be much more intentional because I'm going to have to take care of a kid and I'm maybe not going to have as much free time to do some of the other things I wanted, and it's going to totally change the way that you spend your time outside of work every day.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's not a bad thing, right? It's just a change.
It's all depending on how you decide to look at it. I mean, getting into my childhood a little bit. Like I didn't have a great home life growing up. I know both my parents loved me. My mom and my dad loved me like very much, but me and my younger brothers, but they have been in the middle of a divorce for the past 5 years. So something like that has been going on. So this is including like a couple of those years were still time where I was at home before I started college.
Yeah.
And even before that, like things were not good with my parents. They never really, I guess, never really saw eye to eye. You could say they just had a lot different beliefs on what a marriage should look like, and they never could find common ground there. And so, like, emotionally, me and my younger brothers bore the brunt of a lot of that. We would hear my mom would talk to us about our dad and say, well, your father's doing, like, this and this. And Dad would come and say, well, like your mother is, like, unwilling to budge on this issue, and, like, she's, like, stubborn about this and this. And it puts us in this position of, like one almost feeling responsible because like we're young, we don't know any better, but like our parents are bringing this up to us, like almost making us their like therapists in a way,
Okay.
like putting all these like problems on us, and but we weren't seeing communication between our parents. They didn't want to work out the issues with one another, whether that be from stubbornness or feeling that they had tried and failed and they couldn't get any further.
Do you
Whatever the issue was, they could not. It's almost like they gave up on each other, but they couldn't let go of how they felt, and they needed to some way to express that, and it got expressed to
you guys.
me. Yeah.
Do you feel like maybe they said everything to you that they should have been saying to each other?
To some degree, I mean, in a nicer way.
In a nicer
There
way,
should have
right.
been a lot more, yeah, grace given. Well, it's especially tough when both of your parents are claiming to be Christians and followers of Christ, and you're seeing this example of almost non-love and non-humility from them. Like we were witnessing a lot of hypocrisy and a lot of pride, I guess you could say, and I don't know. It just left me with a lot with a lot of different things. I mean, for one, like my dad, I knew was never a super emotional guy. Like he was never super, I guess, empathetic. You could say he was always kind of like emotionally different. He never really.
He was your typical dad.
Right, like he did great things. Like he played sports with me. Like helped me out through baseball and stuff. He taught me to fish. Like took us on vacations. Like provided financially for us, but he did not really take a lot of time to sit us down and talk to us about life and about virtues and values and things that we should be striving for and what's really important in the world.
Do you think maybe he thought that was implied by your religion? Maybe he's that's
So to speak.
what the Bible's there for, to help you get those answers.
Yeah, because I tried to have a conversation with my dad recently about this. Just me trying to kind of break down some of these walls because I don't want to be again like resentful towards my parents for
Right.
any of this. I know that they did the best that they could,
Right.
but so I tried to talk to my dad about this, and he said, well, like with my parents growing up, my dad was the same way. He never really like taught me like he was never like super like I guess I don't know, not empathetic, but emotional and down to earth, and in that sort of way. But he picked up like his character through his dad's example.
Right. That makes
And I was
sense.
like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You can see that through your dad's example, but dad, in my mind, I didn't outright say this, but in my mind was, well, then dad, like, what example are we seeing from you right now? Whereas like my dad claims to be a Christian, but he still has not been to church for like years and years, and doesn't have a relationship with his wife. Doesn't have a whole lot of like friends that he's really like seems to be like speaking into a whole lot, and I don't want to say too much, but I'm just because it's not really about them, but I was
But that
I was
affected
seeing
the
this
way that you
example.
were
Yes,
raised.
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I was like stunted emotionally in a lot of ways just because of not seeing that example through him.
So, with your experiences with your parents, does that affect how you set your personal standards, both in your relationship with your wife and also as a soon-to-be father?
What do you mean by set your standards?
Well, like,
As
I
in,
guess I mean-
like this is what's acceptable, or
yeah,
this
how,
is.
how you try to conduct yourself in these relationships with your wife and your child.
Yeah, like seeing the way your parents interacted together, because seeing how your dad handled you, I see what you're saying. Seeing how your dad handled you could change the way you want to handle your kid, and seeing the way your dad handled his wife could change the way you want to handle your wife, right? I mean, I imagine
Absolutely,
that.
yeah, for sure. I mean,
Is
it's
it-
definitely not. I definitely don't look at that as a standard of like acceptableness. Like that is not the pattern that I want to set up for my life. I want to break that.
I think I remember hearing you
that
say
pattern.
years ago. You said something to the effect of, "I want to take all the good qualities of each of my parents and kind of imbue those in myself, and then use that for my kid." I don't even remember when that was, but I just feel like I just remember you saying that. And so I can imagine that you would really just apply that mindset, right? Like you
Mhm.
kind of take the good things about them, but then you put it into how you would want to do it. You're kind of piecemealing everything together.
Yeah, definitely good aspects from my parents, because there were things that they did well, not to completely discredit them.
Right.
They're obviously, like, they raised us, and I was homeschooled my entire life. My mom homeschooled me and my brothers, and like she definitely like worked herself nearly to death to like bring that all to
Right.
completion. And so I admire her and respect her a lot for that, and I respect the work that my dad put in, like physically as far as providing and like taking care of the house and things like that. But yeah, on a lot of this relational development, that's where I feel like I needed to learn from both. I needed further information from both my mom and my dad. There's things that I could not get out of their examples. So when Maggie and I started dating, it was a huge blessing, because not only did I have this relationship with Maggie, but I also then was brought into her family, and her family is very different from the way my family operated. I mean, her parents are still together and care very, very deeply about one another, and their family is very tight-knit, and they care about one another, and they communicate very openly with each other about deep emotional issues and hurts. They're not afraid to go to one another and apologize if one of them has wronged the other, and they're also very willing to admit to their own mistakes and their shortcomings. So,
Right.
and that's not to say that they're perfect. Like I've seen them have like huge like blow up fights and stuff like while I'm in the room, and me like I never saw this with my parents. My parents didn't get along, but they never talked about it. It was like
Okay.
it was just like silence all the time, really, in the house, and so. Like to be in the presence of Maggie's parents, like having a big fight with one another, and me being right there, I was like petrified. I was like, oh my goodness, like they're fighting, like this is gonna be the end of their marriage right in front of me.
But it just
and
happens.
then they fight, and then they get out they get out the frustration that they have, or they come to a conclusion based on their communication. Like to me, it just looks like a fight, but it's just because they can both be very passionate about how they're feeling, but through that fight, there's a productive communication that's taking place, and an understanding that they're gaining for one another. And ultimately, usually these fights end up with both people in tears or just sad and sorry that they hurt the other person, and they hug and they forgive one another and they apologize, and then they move on. And I'm like, wait, that was it? Like, so you're good now? And they're like,
After
yeah.
just yelling at each other, everything's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. And they'll admit, they're like, yeah, like ideally, like we try not to fight all the time. Like it's not like we don't want every little disagreement to be a fight. Like we've come a long way in like handling like anger and things like that, because those aren't necessarily desirable virtues.
Right.
But I think the angry fight that results in a productive conversation and a productive resolution and brings people together is much more beneficial than non-communication and stubbornness and not being willing to budge on an issue.
Yes, I could definitely agree with that.
Yeah, so I got to see this example through the few years of being at Maggie's place, and her family was great. They would invite me in for meals like all the time, like on my weekends home from school and everything. They'd have me over, and I basically like became their own kid. So I got to, in a way, kind of grew up the past couple, the last few years of my last few teenager years, got to grow up and see this example. And
Yeah, and that's you kind of feel like they gave you maybe a little bit of what you felt like you never really had.
mm-hmm.
A little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And that's definitely going to shape the way that you raise your kid. Because had you not had that experience of Maggie's family, you wouldn't have even really understood a totally different perspective on how a family works, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like seeing a family that operates in a healthy way and that really looks out for one another. So, yeah, it was very encouraging. I definitely think that was a blessing from God that I got to see this example and something that really just like changed my life and made me think like this can actually like work out well. Like I know kids have like there are plenty of families that are good, but I never got to see those examples. So to actually get to see how it operates, because it wouldn't have worked for me just to say, oh, I'm going to say that I'm going to do everything opposite from what my parents did,
Right.
when I don't know what the opposite looks like.
That's
So
a good
here
point.
I got to see it in a different light, and yeah, I think that has helped a lot. Now, it's a lot different there's a big difference between just observing it and then actually doing it.
Yeah,
So-
that's a very good point.
I mean, I got to see it, and now I feel like I have some confidence, but like for Maggie and I, it's going to be very different when we first like get into this, and that's just going to be almost one day at a time. I was listening to another podcast, and a guy was talking about how there's a big difference between knowledge and wisdom.
That's a very good
And
point.
I
I agree
yeah,
with that.
he basically broke it down as like knowledge is just like something you know, something that's in your mind, something that you've heard, and you maybe retain. But wisdom doesn't come into place until wisdom requires experience.
Yeah.
You need to actually experience things, and then you need to have the presence of mind to apply the knowledge that you have to those situations. Like it's an understanding of how the world works, maybe in a small way, and as your experiences expand, so does your wisdom, in that you're able to apply the knowledge that you have to circumstances.
At least you have quite a lot of time until you actually have to do that, right? I mean, yeah, you're going to have the kid in February, and then you have to raise the kid and whatnot, but it's going to be a few years until they're actually at that point that you have to start parenting them, right? Because for the first couple years, you're quote unquote parenting, but you're really just making sure that they don't fall off a step and crack their head open. But at some point, it gets to where you actually have to start having simple conversation with them and explaining concepts and what's right and what's wrong in your mind and stuff. So yes, you're having a kid when you're young, but at least you're going to have a few more years until you have to really get into the nitty-gritty of parenting, right?
Yeah. I mean, to some degree. I mean,
Because you turned 23 in April, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. Like Maggie and I are young. Like I'm only 22. Maggie's only 20 years old. Like we're young even for a couple to be married, let alone
That's true. Yeah, nowadays.
having
yeah.
a kid.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, to what you said, there's going to be a few years, but like Maggie. So Maggie's been babysitting since she was like 12 years old, something like
Wow.
that, and so that's another huge blessing. She has
Oh,
a
that's
ton
such
of
a good
like
point.
child raising experience,
Huh.
so that's gonna that's gonna help me out a lot. Like she's already put in a lot of the hard work through babysitting and getting to learn a whole lot. But so she's been with this one family for almost like the past 8 years or something like that. And they now have 4 kids, and one of them is a 2-year-old boy. And it's crazy to even see how this little boy, he's only 2 years old, but he's still he's already starting to form some sentences and stuff. He's
Mhm.
fully mobile,
Yeah.
can unlock doors and get himself out of the house. And even there's parenting that takes place.
Yes.
Maggie will talk to this little boy, he'll get all his toys out, and she'll say, "Well, can you put your toys away now?" Or if this kid will come running into the room with something in his hand, and Maggie's like, "Oh, thank you, but I don't need this right now. Can you take it back?" And
Right.
this will he'll turn around and he'll run out of the room and
He just does it.
and then take it back. And I'm even that's parenting. And this kid's
Yes,
only
it
2
is.
years old.
It is.
Can't. But your responsibility does start quickly, and I think even a little bit
Yes.
sooner than you would expect.
Yes.
The responsibility there, and just because you want to be. You want to be intentional. Well, at least I want to be. I don't. I want to be very involved in the development of our kids.
Well, that's really good.
Yeah,
A lot
yeah.
of people can't say that.
Yeah.
Or, a lot of people could say that they didn't have parents that felt that way. So that's really good that you do.
Right, and I'm still trying to work out what being involved means, but I want our kids to understand the value of having to do work and having to do things
Yes.
on their own sometimes.
That's one thing
It's
I
like-
think James's parents did a really good job with, was making him feel included. They were involved in your life. They taught you the repercussions of things. That's one thing you've mentioned to me several times, and it still makes me laugh. Is you had to write an essay on something when you did something wrong and why it was wrong.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
And funny thing, when freshman year going to college,
Yeah.
was sitting in this orientation with my parents, and they were talking about, drinking, and it's a dry campus, you can't drink on campus if you get caught, all this stuff. And they were like, you have to write a reflection paper. And I looked at my mom and I was like, you kidding me? Like, I thought I was going to be done doing that when I left the house. Now I went to college, and
And
there's a
then you're
potential
still
that I have
doing
to
it.
write a reflection paper.
That's
again.
pretty funny.
But
I
it's
feel like
yeah.
it was such a good way to teach you. I really like that. Well, you did this wrong. You're in trouble. Write me a 1-page paper on why what you did was wrong.
That didn't happen a lot.
Right.
It was,
But it got you thinking.
Yeah. I can name one example. I rode my bike on a road, like a very busy road that I wasn't supposed to be riding my bike on. My mom drives by, sees me, and I'm immediately like, oh shit, guess I have to go home now and like, face the consequences of this. And my friend was like, what are you talking about? Like, we're just riding bikes. And I was like, no, it's not that simple. But yeah, that form of punishment is interesting, I think.
Yeah.
It's a good approach. Definitely makes you think about it. I did abuse it, I suppose. One time, wrote a very sarcastic
Oof.
paper, but it made my mom laugh, so it was okay. But no, yeah, it's I guess I never really understood the whole grounding technique.
Yes.
Go to your room
Right.
and sit there and do nothing.
It doesn't teach you anything.
It's just like going to jail, right? You go to jail, you're not just gonna be instantly rehabilitated and be allowed back on the streets
Right.
to not murder somebody again.
Right.
Like, if I just go and sit in my room for 2 days, I'm just gonna go ride my bike on the road again.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I don't care.
Because you don't know why you shouldn't have
It
done
was
it.
never really explained,
It was-
or you don't actually take time to think about it. You sit there
and
and
do whatever else.
draw on a notepad for 2 days.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was paddled.
Yeah.
That was my punishment. It was if you did something wrong, you get smacked in the ass with dude, my dad, he had it had to be about 2 feet long from handle to the end. And it was like it almost looked like a cricket bat, sort of.
like
and-
a frat house paddle.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
get this. He drilled holes in it. Right? He drilled holes in it to make it like more aerodynamic or something. And then he also took red paint and did like a streak or two of red paint on either side, so it looked like it was I don't know what the point of it was, but that thing was I think he wanted it to look terrifying.
Yeah.
So it didn't really teach me anything. All it taught me was I told my sister to shut up, and now Dad's giving me a paddling because I told Lauren to shut up. Now, my dad wasn't just a child abuser, okay? He wasn't abusing me. He was following his religious beliefs and he thought it was right. Okay, that's one thing. But also, he didn't just paddle you. It wasn't, oh, you did a bad thing. Now you get paddled. Now you're on your way. It was you get paddled and then you get sat down with and you have to have a conversation about why what you did was wrong.
Right.
So it wasn't great because of the paddling thing, but I
Well,
feel like that's more of what I retained was, oh, if I do something wrong, I get paddled.
yeah, you need that initial type of punishment, right? If every time you did something wrong, all that happened was you sit down and talk about it,
Yeah,
there's not really any
Right. then-
deterrence to not do something wrong.
right.
I agree, absolutely. I think, because I was paddled as well. My parents had a paddle very similar to what you just
Yes,
described.
I think
Bill.
it actually was,
it
the same one,
like
it
same
just,
type.
I think it was the same exact frame. It's just dad drill holes,
Yeah,
and
I
I
didn't-
feel like I remember seeing it.
My
Anyway.
parents didn't get into the hole drilling or anything.
No,
but no, I was paddled as well. But my parents did the same thing. They sat me down and said, like, look, like and I think one of the most important things is the fact that they said, look, Nate, we do not want to punish you. Like, this hurts us just as much as it hurts you because we love you.
But that's just a lie, because those paddlings hurt.
Well, no, well, they do, but it teaches a lesson. I mean, Phil, you said like, oh, but it didn't really teach me anything. I don't know how true that is. Like I'm grateful for it. Like I am glad that my parents did that. Like I understood that. Like I understood like if I do something wrong, like something very unpleasant is going to happen to me, and that is exactly how the real world is. If you don't show up to your job on time, do that a couple times, and there's no consequences for it, then suddenly they fire you, and you're like, well, what the heck? Like,
Well,
what's that about? Because you don't, like the real world is like that, and if you're not taught that, like, there's going to be consequences for wrong actions from a very young age, you live life just like not being afraid of any authority, not having any respect for what other people feel is important, and it can just set you up for a lot of failure. I think there needs to be discipline.
Oh no, for sure, and I definitely agree. I think where I draw the but is that, I mean, my dad died when I was 10. You all know this, but the thing is that I know that after that happened, I was, what are you gonna do? You gonna paddle me? I mean, Dad's not here to paddle me. Are you gonna do it? Dad always used to do the paddling. So now it was kind of, I felt like I could get away with more because Mom never paddled me. I mean, maybe she did once or twice and I don't remember because Dad wasn't there or something. But Dad was the one who always did it. So the second Dad was gone, it was almost, oh, I'm home free. I can do whatever the hell I want because Mom's not gonna paddle me. So that's where I feel like, and maybe just because I'm a different person, maybe that's just the way I processed it in my mind was, well, now I know that my consequence that was always there isn't really there anymore, so now I can get away with more.
Because the authority figure is no longer there.
Yes, so that's where I get worried, is if you give your kids the same exact punishment every time, then when that punishment's no longer around because they're 18, for example, and they've gone off to college, they are less afraid of the repercussions of things because they know that that specific punishment isn't going to be there anymore. That's what I worry about. So just like paddling works and just like writing an essay works, if you use either one of those punishments all the time, it doesn't help in the end. You have to mix it up. I don't necessarily know how I feel about paddling, but that's just me as a person.
I don't know if it's necessarily mixing it up, but I think you need to get to a point where, like I don't want to be paddling my kids once they start hitting 13, 14 years old.
Yeah.
Like I want them to get to a point where they appreciate doing the right thing, not just fear of the consequence.
Derek was 16 and he still got paddled. That is degrading, bro.
Yeah.
That sucked for him. I feel so bad.
Yeah, and another thing that you said was my parents, they both would do the paddling. Like I got paddled by my mom probably just as much as I got paddled by Dad. And
yeah.
Sometimes Mom was scarier because like Dad would sometimes do 3, Mom would be like 5 sometimes. I was like, whoa, like
I think we were maybe 3 at most.
But to some degree they were, and this is one thing that my parents did well. I think at least when we were younger, they were a united front when it came to the discipline. As we got older, that started to break down.
Right, because their relationship kind of started to digress.
Yeah. Like things started to fall apart where it'd be like Mom said don't do this, but Dad, can I do it? And Dad's like, oh, whatever. And then you lose respect. You lose respect very quickly when one parent says no. Yeah. But like when both of your parents are a united front, and like I didn't lose my dad at a young age. I don't know what that's like, but I would hope that like if something like that were to happen, I would still maintain the respect for my mom, understanding that like they're a team. They were at least like that's the intended goal, is for your parents to be a team.
Correct.
And you maintain that respect, and then you carry that respect on into your adult life as, okay, my parents are no longer the authority figure. The authority figure is my employer. The authority figure is the law. Ultimately, for me, my authority figure is God, and wanting to obey God's commands. I would much rather be punished by my parents when I'm a child than punished by God for unrighteous living when I'm older.
Okay.
So, yeah, that was kind of my mindset behind it, but I definitely think that discipline is necessary.
Discipline is definitely, I mean, yeah, you can't not discipline your kids. We've seen that, how that goes with
Mom
some
did
people.
eventually after Dad died. I just got yelled at. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
So I
It's not effective.
didn't learn anything. I
Oh.
just got yelled at.
You had said try to change up the punishment, so it's not the same consequence every time.
Yeah.
And I don't know that. Well, okay. I guess number one, I hope you don't have to punish your child so much that you feel like
Oh,
you
yeah,
need to
right.
switch it up a little
Yeah, I
bit.
see what you mean.
Then another thing with that is, I feel like, okay, you're just mixing the punishment up so that it's almost like you make your kids scared of the punishment. Like, oh, I don't know what it's going to be this time.
I guess I mean mix it up in the sense that find an appropriate punishment for the situation. Don't just default
okay,
to
yeah.
one thing,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. I get
Like
it.
so, if your kid kills someone, you can't go write an essay on why that's
Right.
wrong. You need to have a lot more.
Okay.
Well, I mean the law's going to deal with that,
Yes, yeah.
but it's kind of. I guess I'm just saying you can't give a punishment that would be minor in relation to what they
Right.
did, or vice
it has
versa.
to be equal to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's why I think paddling didn't work for me in my mind, and I won't carry that over to my kids. And again, that's just me, specifically because I feel like sometimes it's way too harsh of a punishment, and sometimes it's not harsh enough. And I shouldn't have gotten paddled for telling my sister to shut up, but maybe I should have gotten paddled for something else I did. So I don't know. I feel like there needs to be a different way to do it.
I also kind of feel like I have to clarify the reflection paper. It wasn't like, oh, you can just go and write it and be done with it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you
It
still
was-
got talked to.
Yeah,
There was more to
talk
it.
to, and also when I had to do one on St. Patrick's Day for
Yep.
forget why the cop showed up to my house.
Well, because we
took
you-
pictures of an ATM.
we're gonna go on a little story. So Nate, you're gonna hear a little adventure.
Okay,
So
I'll buckle up.
James and I are driving.
This is more than just you and me.
Yeah, James
Yeah.
and I are driving in the car with David and
Trevor
David and Trevor?
Audrey. Peter?
Peter. And we're driving by and we see a sign at a bank that says, "Come see our new ATM." So James goes, "You want to go see their new ATM?" And we go, "Yeah." So we pull into the parking lot and we go, "Is that their new ATM? Oh, look, there it is." David pops out of the sunroof and starts taking pictures on his phone of the ATM. Right? And James is like, "David, get back in the car." We're like, "David, get in the car. Please stop. And just don't do this." So James starts to drive to get David to get back in the car. So he gets in. We leave. What happened then? The next day, a cop showed up at your house?
The next day, apparently a cop showed up at my house while I was at school. And the cop asked my dad, are you the owner of this vehicle? And he was like, my dad said, "Well, that's my son's car."
Right.
He gets out at 2:15. He'll be home by 3 if you want to stop by then. So we're supposed to go to Ganley's.
That's right, because we were supposed to
And
go
it
to
was
Ganley's
St.
Pub
Patrick's
for
Day.
St. Patrick's Day. We
I
got
had a
beef
van
ties
full
and
of
everything.
children. It was like 4 of us in the car.
Yeah.
I was stopping home for something, and I see the cop sitting at the end of the street, and I go, and it's not like my township cop; it's the township over.
The township
So I
of where the bank
immediately-
was.
Immediately, I'm like, "Wow, what did I do in Sinking Springs that is gonna what?" And the cop just talks to me. He's like, "Well, what the hell were you doing?" I was like, "Man, honestly, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, well, you're gonna have to specify here." And so my parents obviously didn't let me go to Ganley's. My dad was pretty upset.
Right.
Couldn't drive the car until
Oh, well, you were allowed to take it to school and back, and that was it,
that
right?
was it. Well, so what happened was they, decided on write this reflection paper, and also you can't have your car until we say so.
Yeah.
It's like, fine, whatever. I'll do the paper because the sooner the paper is done, the sooner they can, think about giving the car back.
Right.
I do the paper, explain the situation that was very sarcastic. Not sarcastic, but I just went into we had psychology at the time.
Yes,
So
we
I
did.
wrote this whole thing about the male frontal cortex isn't fully developed until 25. So can you really blame me? And also it wasn't really me, it was David, and I told David to get back in the car. And my mom read it, had a good laugh, shared it with her friends at work. They were all like, "Oh, let him off the hook. You know, it's not that big of a deal."
Yeah, and she even called me to make sure that
Yeah,
our
that's
stories
right. She
corroborated.
didn't really know you at the time either.
No, she didn't. I barely knew her. She
Yeah.
called me to make sure that
I think you answered
I-
like Tony's Pizza or
I was
something.
like, "Oh, hello, this is
Yeah.
Philip," or something like that. I
Yeah.
don't even remember. But that was pretty funny. Yeah. So exactly. It wasn't just you wrote the paper.
Right,
It was
there
like
was-
you had other repercussions
Yeah.
behind it. And I feel like, and just knowing your parents, especially your mom, seeing the way that they are, I could definitely understand the way they raised you was probably really great. I mean, every parent does things wrong, but I generally have
I-
respect for your parents, and
would
I like
say
the way that they
overall,
treat you. Yeah,
I was pretty lucky
yeah,
with my home life
yeah.
and how my parents behaved towards me,
Mm,
I guess is a good way to put it.
yeah,
Let me act independently while also, making sure that I understand right from wrong and
mm,
still disciplining where necessary. But
Mm-hmm.
I think independence for a child can either be the best thing for that kid or one of the worst things, depending on the child. Somebody like David, if he has independence, maybe he misuses that freedom.
Speaking of which, David, the one who took the pictures out of the sunroof, has a kid now.
That's true.
I
Oh my
wonder
good-
I wonder
wait.
how that no I really legitimately hope things are going well. I wonder how it's going. I've seen him probably maybe like 5 months ago, and he seems fine.
Is this the crazy David who went to some metal shows with us?
Ginger David, yeah,
Yeah.
pretty tall.
Yeah.
Yep, that David.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that David.
That's
I think
Yeah.
his parents.
good for
Helped.
him.
No,
I
honestly,
hope,
I hope it's
so.
going well.
I don't
yeah.
know.
Is he
Hopefully
still
he's
with
not.
his girlfriend?
I am unsure.
Hmm.
What were we gonna say about his parents?
I think they stepped in pretty heavily. I know David's mom is one to step in and help.
David's
in that
mom is
situation.
going to be an awesome grandma.
Yeah.
Hmm.
She is an amazing person.
So I think David's doing all right. I
I
know
really
he's
hope so.
working.
Yeah.
He actually was just messaging me on Snapchat.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I didn't reply to him or he hasn't replied to me yet. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
No, that's such wow. I like forgot David had a kid, and I said earlier in the episode like, oh, you're gonna have a kid, and Alvin's gonna have a kid. I can't think of anyone else, but
David, yeah.
well, because that his kid's probably about a year old now,
And
isn't
Gabe
it?
also has a kid.
Oh my gosh, and Gabe has a kid too. Wow,
Yeah.
jeez.
You gotta get all these fathers on.
Man, I gotta get all these
Yeah.
fathers.
Talk
We should
about-
do
talk about
a father
father
podcast.
podcast.
Yeah, do it on Father's Day.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That's a
Father's
good
Day
idea.
Father podcast. Yeah, maybe we'll do it in the future. But
Phil, I want to go back to something you said about you felt it was unjust over you said shut up to your sister, and you felt that okay, maybe that the punishment for that was a little bit excessive.
yeah,
Growing up in my house, we had a rule that like we don't say shut up to one another, and I'm curious to see how you guys feel about this.
well,
The-
it's,
the-
a, it's a
basically-
curse.
Yeah, it's you're like when you say shut up, like it's such a little thing, and you hear it all the time. People are like, oh, like shut up, man. Like you hear people say shut up, but like I never want to talk to Maggie in that way. Like when you say shut up, you're essentially saying
Stop talking. I
like-
don't want to hear what you have to say.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
like you're a
respect
human.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like, it is. In that moment, it doesn't mean a whole lot, but I think like when you say those words to someone, yeah, essentially, I don't want to hear what you have to say. Like I know you're a fellow human being, but your voice is not important to me enough to even listen to.
Right.
I think like there's a gravity to that can leave people with a lot of long term, like hurt or even just like self image issues, just like wow, like maybe my voice isn't worth listening to. And I'm not saying that's always the case. Some people have more like self confidence than others, and they can just let that bounce
Well,
off.
yeah,
of them. But
because
when you're a kid and developing, I think
right,
those words, yeah.
because you might
With
have
a
a
lot of
brother
weight.
who's just a total jerk, and his opinion doesn't or shouldn't matter to the little brother, but the little brother is always told to shut up by the big brother, and the little brother's not he can't wrap his head around that he shouldn't be taking his brother's words like that, or taking his brother's opinion seriously in that way. So yeah, I could totally understand that. One of them is just being rude to the younger kid, and then he gets permanently messed up and thinks, oh, maybe I shouldn't talk. Maybe my opinion doesn't mean anything because no one wants to hear me.
Mm-hmm.
When really it's just that one kid who's his brother who's just being a jerk. So
Right.
it doesn't help anyone to trash someone like that. That's a
Yeah.
very good point.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where you have to explain, well, it's not about not necessarily saying the words shut up. It's about never tell someone to stop talking. Never tell them to shut up because you are immediately disregarding them as a person. You're shutting them down.
Mm-hmm.
Never shut someone down like that. And
Yeah.
it's about not saying shut up, but it's more so in my mind about don't just throw someone to the side like that.
Yeah.
I think, at least in the case that you were talking about where you said shut up to your sister,
Yeah.
as a kid, in that light, you were probably saying it because whatever she was saying or doing was annoying you, and you don't really think too
I
much.
can remember it. I think
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what she said to me, but it was me just being like, I don't want to hear you talk, that kind of thing. Like, it wasn't that she was being annoying, but she said something, and I was like, shut up. So, yeah, it wasn't that she was being annoying, but it was like I was like, shut up. I was angry. I was like,
Yeah.
just stop talking. Yeah, I guess, I don't know. But anyway, continue.
I think in probably most cases, as for kids, it's more about, well, like in the case of the older brother and the younger brother. The younger brother is doing is annoying the older brother, so their knee-jerk reaction is just shut up. Like, I don't want to hear you anymore. You're
Yeah.
annoying.
Yeah.
So I think, I think all that to say, the words have a lot of power. The Bible talks about this so much. The Bible uses so many analogies and examples all throughout Scripture about the power of the tongue. It uses phrasing like the tongue is like the rudder on a ship. Like a ship can be huge, and the rudder is such a small part of the vessel, but it steers where the entire ship goes. The tongue is like the spark that can set a whole forest on fire.
Such a cool analogy.
In the tongue contains the power of life and death. That's stuff
Wow.
that's like said in the Bible. Like the words that we say can have such a profound impact on people, and even something as little as saying "shut up" to somebody, you don't realize like how people internalize that, and especially children. Like, there's so many studies coming out about like how much what children hear when they're growing up affects how they behave as adults. Like things that you experience, because like as you develop like convictions and beliefs about things that you can try to live out to the best of your example. But ultimately, like your experiences, whether good or bad as a child, are going to have some sort of impact
Yes.
with how you conduct yourself, how you handle your relationships, and basically how you live your life. And if you have a lot of bad experiences from your childhood, whether it's physical abuse or just verbal abuse or mental abuse, those things can, like, they're going to come to the surface eventually when you're older, and you're going to need to reconcile with them. So the more that you can avoid instilling like harmful words into a child or creating bad patterns that they then pick up on, the better off they'll be later on. And again, I think it goes back to discipline, not just disciplining your child, but I think even like discipline for yourself and being controlled in the example that you set forward.
Yeah.
Which that's another big topic we can get into.
No, that's such a
I
good
also
point.
draw a connection to Buddhism there with right speech.
Yes, dude. Oh man, you should really look into these. They're so cool. The general teachings of Buddhism are so awesome. They're very similar to the Ten Commandments in my mind.
Okay.
But
I'm sure.
there's a lot more, and I think that I don't know. Anyway, but yes, exactly like you just said, right speech. I think that was such a cool connection that you just made, because it's exactly like you just said. You gotta have control for yourself, and I don't know. I think that's sort of what we were saying in about Buddhism the other day, is that it can do such a good job at just teaching you how to just be more mindful and everything. And yeah, you just made such a good point. You have to control yourself, and yeah, it's about parenting your kid, but you almost have to parent yourself and grow up and be more mature and realize that you can't say some of the things that you want to say to your kid because that's how you end up destroying them sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could say one thing, right? I've been told that they wish I was never born, right? I've been told that. That sucks. I don't want to ever tell that to my kids. So, I don't know. It's just one thing.
No,
But-
that's a great point, and it goes back to, again, humility. And I recognize, like I'm a 22-year-old kid still. Like I still view myself as a kid. I still have acne. Like I'm getting over it. And
Yeah, right?
I still
think
can't
of
grow
myself.
I can't grow a beard, and I'm having a kid. And like I'm still trying to figure out how pay off student loans and figure out how 401k works and all
Yeah.
this stuff. And I'm having a kid. I'm not going to do this perfectly. I'm going to mess up
No, how could
a
you?
lot.
You're human.
Maggie's going to mess up. We're
Yeah.
going to mess up with how we treat each other in
Mhm.
front of our kid. We'll mess up with how we handle our kids' misbehavior and life lessons. Like we're going to mess up. But my point is you got to be able to have humility and recognize when you've crossed the line or when you've stepped over a boundary or have gone too far
Yes.
with your kid and go to them and say, even if when your kid is young, like you gotta show them the example of being an adult who actually cares and say, look, like son, like I'm sorry that I handled the situation in this way. I
imperfect.
I disciplined you unfairly. Yeah. Like I don't always get this right. Like, and will you forgive me for that? Like.
Yeah.
Like, do I still have your trust?
That's such a
Like,
good
did
thing
I
to
lose
say.
your do I still have your trust and your respect? Like that doesn't happen a whole lot. Like at least in my experience, it doesn't happen a whole lot. And
Right.
I can't imagine it does, because it's very easy to be prideful and just say like, oh, like I'm the parent, like whatever I did was justified, and
Yeah.
my kid will get over it.
Why can't I go? Because I said so. Hate that one. Doesn't do anything for anybody. Because I said so. Well, okay. Thanks. Thank you for teaching me why I'm not allowed to go. No, you just smack it with a fly swatter. Just no, because I say no. It doesn't do anything. Sometimes you have to say it. I can't think of
I
a
think-
context off the top of my head in which you would, but I can imagine that sometimes you just have to say, because I said so. But that excuse being used all the time doesn't do anything for anybody. It's just a cop-out,
Yeah.
generally. I don't know,
Yeah.
in my mind.
James, you have any thoughts on that? No. So I would say that I think your kids need to, again, going back to authority, I think if you say no, your children need to respect the authority and just say, okay,
Well, yeah.
then like that's okay. But like naturally, kids are also going to ask questions, and I think that there's a point of, from time to time, like having to explain that to them. You can't just say, because I said so all the time. That can't be your answer to everything, or
Yep.
else then it is a cop-out. You're choosing the easy way out, which I think is a very natural tendency. Like as humans, we sometimes want to cut corners. We want to take the easiest
Yeah.
way to get things done.
Yeah.
It's
Sometimes
very
it's really
natural.
efficient, but sometimes it just
Yeah,
ends up biting
it's so
us
much
in the
it's so much
ass.
easier to just say because I said so than to explain
Right.
to your kid, look, like mom and dad are tired right now, and we don't have time to get you to this. We have things that we want to get done,
Yeah.
and our time with one another is still important. Whatever the issue.
It's
whatever the
really like,
reason
are
may
you
be.
gonna disappoint them by proving to them that you're imperfect and that you can't always be there for them, or are you going to make them dislike you and almost hate you by just telling them no?
Yeah.
There's no, it's a lose-lose, but it's really how you handle the situation.
No,
I'd rather
no,
be disappointed than be angry or upset.
No, I think there can be a winning. I think there's a way that you can handle it that is beneficial, and
Oh yeah, the way that's beneficial. Yeah.
So let me paint the picture this way. So you explain to them, no, you cannot go. Here's the reason why, and then you explain to them, listen, like we are a family, and we're a team. We operate as a team, which means we, like mom and dad, sacrifice parts of ourselves to help you and to help your brothers and sisters, and for you guys to do well, to give you guys opportunities, to take you guys places. But at the same time, you need to sacrifice for your brothers and sisters, and sometimes you need to sacrifice for mom and dad.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
that we can have the time that we need to get our things done, and that we can have time together. You understand that like you're operating for the greater good of the family,
I have
not just yourself. You teach them to be selfless from time to time. Like there's times where like everyone needs like there are a certain time where they get the attention, but you also need to be selfless and willing to sacrifice for others.
Yes. I would like to say, I feel if there's anybody that I trust to have a kid, it's you. I mean, that's nothing against my brother or anybody else, because I have faith in other people who I know are going to have kids that will be fine. I don't know, just based on the things you've said to me over the years and based on what you were just saying to me now, I think you're going to be okay. I think you're going to be fine. I mean, it's like you said, it's never going to be perfect. You're only human. You're going to have your hiccups. There are going to be hardships. That's fine. But out of anybody, you guys are going to do it in a good way. You're going to be okay. You're going to be fine. I really trust that you're going to be fine. I legitimately think everything's going to be okay in the end.
Well, thanks,
Yeah.
Phil. I'm glad that you think that. Yeah, I believe that too. I've talked about it already. Like Maggie and I are Christians. We believe in God, and we know that God didn't allow us to go through the past several years that we've gone through that have led up to us getting through school and getting our jobs and getting our apartment and getting married and to now being pregnant. God did not let us go through all of that to just fall flat on our face with parenthood or to just let us fail at this. He's going to give us the wisdom for each day. And
You having that mindset is just going to help propel you forward even more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So more power to you.
So
Exactly.
more power to God.
Sure.
That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely going to be a life change, and this is right now. Like, we haven't even started the parenting yet. I mean, this is all just very speculative. Like, this is what I want it to look like.
Right.
Like the things that I've expressed is the goals that I want to be striving for. I mean.
But at least you have an idea of those goals.
Right.
Right.
We wanna have a plan. I don't just want to be a parent that sits our kid down in front of the television or the iPad or
Here,
the
take
Xbox,
this iPad. Yeah.
and like, we'll see you at dinner time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a whole nother conversation.
That
as
is.
far as the technology, there's a lot of stuff there.
I think we even kind of touched on it in the entertainment episode a little bit.
Yeah, we
I
did.
think we talked about children and
How they just
technology.
get technology shoved into their
Mhm.
faces and everything.
And you see it so much now. So many parents just. I think it's a marketing thing, but anyway.
Oh, you think it's a marketing thing?
I think partially. I think it was excelled by marketing. Parents were
Dang.
like, "Wow, this is really easy for me to just hand over my phone, my smartphone, to my kid and let them play a game." So then, people started marketing.
Yeah, what are
games
those
and-
things?
yeah.
Remember those weird computer game things that were designed for kids back in like 2010? I had no idea what the heck they were called. But it was practically like an iPad for your kid that was
Oh.
designed for games.
Oh, like the PSP, and like the portable game.
Well, but
Yeah, but it looked
but
like
I
a
think
tablet
was,
more.
Yeah.
It was
I
like
know
a
what
it
you're
was like a
talking about.
leapfrog or what leapfrog was that? It was,
Yeah, I
it was
think-
something,
I
it was
think
something like
leapfrog,
that. It
I
was
think.
something weird like that.
I think
Yeah.
that was it.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, because it actually looked like a frog.
I think it did.
It had like, yeah.
I don't remember if that's what it was called, but there was
Yeah,
something like that.
Right, like companies begin to market for
yes.
parents that want to give their children devices,
Yeah.
and it makes it easier and more accessible to just hand a tablet over to your kid and
Yeah,
let the
perpetuates
device
it,
do
yeah.
the parenting.
Yeah.
So the digital pacifier.
The
Yeah.
digital, yes,
Keeps them
the digital
occupied.
pacifier. I
Yeah.
like that. We could do a whole
Yeah.
episode on that. That's a
Yeah.
great episode title.
It also goes back to what I had mentioned about people wanting to take the easy way out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
Yep.
they say,
Cutting corners.
nothing that's worth doing will be easy. Like anything that's worth doing is gonna also require hard work and challenge.
It's going to take a lot of dedication to kill myself from alcohol poisoning, but I see your point. I'm just saying, it can take a lot of hard work to do something that's not necessarily constructive, but I'm just messing with you. But I see your point. Yes,
But all things that are worthwhile, usually all things that are worthwhile require hard work to get there.
Yes, for sure. Definitely. it's easy to get pregnant and have the kid. It's hard to raise the kid properly, right? It's hard to actually do the work every day of your life and give that kid a good upbringing.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
something you're gonna be good at. You and Maggie, you're gonna kill it.
I hope so. That's that is the goal. That's the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna definitely require hard work. Even the first part where you said like before we really get into too much like parenting and teaching, like we're getting up in the middle of the night to change a dirty diaper, to feed the baby, to put the baby back to sleep, like things like that. Like having restrictions now on your social life and what you can do, and having to find a babysitter if you want to like have time together. There's so much there that I think if you only look at it as a loss of freedom, you'll go insane. I think that's why so many young people, at least from my perspective, I've talked to a lot of young people who say that they never want to have kids. A lot of them say they never even want to get married or settle down because they only look at it as a loss of their freedom and ability to do what they want to do. They don't look at the long-term benefits, I think, of being a parent and having a family and the joys that can come from that and the satisfaction and the sense of belonging and feeling like you have a family that is tight-knit and cares for one another. I think that there's so much joy that can be found in that, so much earthly satisfaction that can come from that,
Yeah.
that people aren't looking at simply because they see like hard work and responsibility and lifelong commitment. I think that's something that's scary, is to be lifelong committed to something. If I decided tomorrow that I wanted to up and move to Alaska or go down to Florida or like switch jobs or anything like that, like switch careers, go back to school, all of those things now need to be filtered through the lens of my family and what's best for the family. And there's not just freedom for me to live entirely how I want, guilt-free. Like I need to take into consideration
Your
other
family
people.
almost
Other
comes
people.
first in a way. Yeah.
It does come first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like immediately ahead of what I would want, and so I think it leads to a lot of people being afraid to jump into that.
Well,
I think this has been a good episode.
I think this has been a great episode. Nate, thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you
It was
for
a
coming on
pleasure.
and talking with us.
There's a lot more that I could have said.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we
might
could
need to
probably
have
go
you back
on for
at another
hours.
time. There's.
Oh, you're definitely going to come back on another time. Heck yeah.
Yes.
There's no way you're not. Of
Because
course.
Moser's not even here, so we're gonna have to do it all again another time anyway with Moser.
Wait, this one's getting posted, right?
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
this
yeah.
one's getting
Awesome.
posted, but
Yeah, we're definitely going to post this one. But hey, thank you again.
yeah.
Thanks
Things
for
have
having
gone
me.
great. Bye, everybody.